Svinavaditamastu Mavit Vishavanaihi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
We saw that there are twofold results for this inquiry and understanding the nature of Atma completely with the total clarity. One is that the fulfillment that one has been searching for lifetimes, one gets by knowing the nature of oneself. Yeah. So the method of fulfillment is not I want something and if I get it then I will be fulfilled. That whole scenario, that whole paradigm is shifted. Okay? The person understands that Atma, as Surya was very beautifully explaining, there is a shift which is a shift based on facts, and that is Atma is not this struggling little entity which is trying to, get things according to one's wishes. Atma is that attributeless reality upon which everything else exists. And that knowledge is so clear, it is as clear as daylight. There is absolutely no struggle, there is no attempt to bring it back and all. So one lives from that reality, and that's what gives fulfillment. So this is the first result. The second result is that one doesn't have to come and experience the world as a small entity again. That small entity is a result of ignorance. So once the ignorance is removed, then the use of that, we did Ishavasya Upanishad, and it was so beautiful. Towards the end, there is this verse where a wise person tells Ishvara that you gave me the body and you gave me the mind, and the purpose of this body and mind was for me to know the reality about you and myself. And it has served its purpose, so I'm offering this body back to you. I'm offering this mind back to you. This is beautiful. So it kind of, it was meant for you to figure out this puzzle. I have finished, I have done it, and I just give it back to you. So this is why you have really taken care of the root of coming back again and again and again, and that is avidya. Avidya is ignorance of what the reality is. What seems to us is very different from what is. So when your mind is totally abiding in what is, and is not confused or not vacillating between your reality and the reality, then it is, the journey is over. Yeah. So this is what it says, that there is no more coming back as an individual. The causes are gone away. The cause is avidya, and avidya based karma and karma phala. Everything is gone. Yeah. Now here the next verse is etat gneyam nityam eva atma stham na ataha param veditavyam kinchita bhokta bhogyam preritaram cha matva sarvam proktam vividham brahma etat. Okay. So now here it says that the person knows totally one's identity with Brahman. Okay. So that means that my Atma is not only Sarva Bhutatma Atma. My Atma is not only Atma of everyone. There is nothing particular about my Atma. There is something particular about my body and my mind, but there is nothing particular about my Atma. It is Atma of all the beings, and it is also Atma of Ishvara. It is I. So this is what is the understanding of a human being. Now, one thing I wanted to highlight, which is a very extremely important point, and there are some scholars which don't get it right. So when they talk about Upanishads, they talk about two types of vakyas which are in the Upanishads. One is what we call Avantara Vakya, and the other one is Mahavakya. What is Avantara Vakya? What is Mahavakya? Avantara Vakya, they say, this is not what our teacher agrees with, but they say that Avantara Vakya is, for example, when it is said, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So there is this Brahman, which is what? Existence, awareness, which is limitless. Okay? Now this is something which is giving knowledge about existence of Brahman, but it is not revealing that that Brahman is I. So what the scholars say is, it is giving you kind of not the direct knowledge of Brahman, but it is giving you what? Some kind of an existence of Brahman, which is, it is giving you indirect knowledge. Then there are other Vakyas in Upanishads which are called Mahavakyas, which talk about Aham Brahma Asmi. I am that Brahman. So that is what? That is Mahavakya. That means that it gives you direct knowledge of what? You are Brahman. So this is what the scholars make the distinction, and a lot of Vedanta is taught like that, that there are Avantara Vakyas. They will all tell you very sophisticatedly, there are Avantara Vakyas, there are Mahavakyas. One gives indirect knowledge, the other one gives direct knowledge. Now, can you find a fallacy in this? Because my teacher is completely, he says this doesn't exist, and he gives reasons for that. So now let's little bit look in before I give my answer. Do you find any problem with this? Yes, what?
What was the Vakya? Not the Mahavakya?
Avantara
Vakya describes something, but it opens to a separation. It makes a separation possible.
Excellent. Excellent. Absolutely. So, see, my teacher says that Brahman can never be understood as a given thing. Because if you understand Brahman as a given thing, that means what? You're making it as an object. And if you take it as an object, you haven't understood Brahman. You can never understand Brahman other than I. You can never. So there are a lot of people say, yeah, I understand that there is one Brahman, which is the truth of everything, but I can't understand that I am that Brahman. Hey, you haven't understood. Because there is no X thing which is truth of everything. And then who are you? You are this, this still that little individual. So that means in that case, there is no understanding of Brahman. Brahman is not an external entity. You can never claim that I understand Brahman as a thing, because it's not a thing. It's not a thing other than you. Brahman is your Swarupa. The only way you can understand Brahman is as your Swarupa, not as an indirect thing. So this is where our teacher used to very, very emphatically talk about the difference between direct knowledge and indirect knowledge. So generally we say, some of the so-called scholars say, first there is indirect knowledge of Brahman, and then there is what? Direct knowledge. So first you think that, first you know that there must be something called Brahman, then what? Then you say, I am Brahman. Our teacher says that there cannot be two stages to this knowledge. can never be, because there is Brahman that it cannot be called as knowledge, because in that position you are taking Brahman as something other than you. And that means if you are taking Brahman as something other than you, you haven't understood Brahman. Because it's an error. It's an error, it's not the reality. So there is a distinction between indirect and direct knowledge. So what is this indirect and direct knowledge? So this is like, if I tell you that there is a fruit called durian, and that durian fruit is very popular in Southeast Asia. Now, coming from India, maybe you have never seen durian. So now you want to know what is durian. So I tell you that it is little bit like jackfruit. It is, but it is the texture is little smoother. It's slightly sweeter than jackfruit, but it has this amazing smell. So this is what, now I use something that you know, and then I give you some kind of this is what we call upamana in terms of pramana. Pramana means of knowledge. A lot of knowledge can take place like that, and that you give an example of something similar, and then you take that something which is similar, and then you say, okay, this is, but it is different in this manner. Now, this description will give you direct knowledge of durian or indirect knowledge of durian? Indirect knowledge, exactly. It will give you indirect knowledge of durian because you don't yet know it, right? Now imagine you go to Singapore, you go to Malaysia, and you see one fruit, and that is of this size, and it kind of looks like jackfruit, and it is a little bit smoother in texture, but it smells, and it is little sweeter. Then without anybody telling you anything, what will you say?
Durian.
This is durian, exactly. So that means without no additional input at that given point in time, you will understand this is durian. So at that time, it will become indirect or direct knowledge? Direct knowledge, right? So that means first there is an indirect knowledge which is then converted into direct knowledge. So people use the same logic for Atma. They said first when Upanishad talks about, you take it as, yeah, there is some Brahman. Then when you so-called experience, or when you get to know Brahman, then it becomes what? Direct knowledge. There is a faulty logic there. What is the faulty logic? The faulty logic is that, can you figure out what is the faulty logic here?
Brahman is not the object of experience.
Okay, very good. See, the faulty logic here is indirect knowledge can only take place of a thing which is not close to you. Durian is not within the vicinity of what? Your perception. So therefore, when I give you the description of durian, taking into, giving you an example of jackfruit. Jackfruit is something that is known to you, whether you've seen it today or you've seen it before. But durian you have never seen, it's away from you. It is away from you, and by description of something which is away from you, it will give you what? Indirect knowledge. So now when you go to, let's say Singapore, and you see it, it becomes what? Direct knowledge. So that means indirect knowledge always takes place when what? Something is away from you. One can never have indirect knowledge of Brahman, because Brahman, the way we have to understand is what? Not as something other than you. The minute you understand Brahman as something other than you, that means you haven't understood Brahman at all. So that means there is an error. Something which is close to you, you take it as what? Something which is away from you. That is error. That's not knowledge. So therefore, Brahman, Atma, when Upanishad gives knowledge of Atma as Brahman, it can never be indirect knowledge. If you take it as a third thing, indirect knowledge means you take it as something which is away from you, other than you. So that means there is an error here. So that means our teacher used to say, all the Upanishads, whenever you are talking about Brahman, they are all Mahavakyas. There is no distinction between Avantara Vakya and Mahavakya. That whole methodology misses the point. There can never be indirect knowledge of Brahman. The minute the Upanishads talk about Brahman, they talk about what, even in Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmavid apnoti param. The knower of Brahman gains the highest. So that means, if you know Brahman as something which is other than you, you only know it as an object. Nothing changes for you. You gain the highest because you are that Brahman. And that Brahman is limitless. So, and also logically you can't have something which is limitless and you away from it. That will not make that object limitless. That given thing limitless. If you are away from it, it will not be limitless because you will limit that thing. So that means there are so many logical errors which are passing in the so-called scholarly tradition. People don't see this is the difference between scholarship and clarity. Our teacher was outstanding. He was like notches over everybody else. Notches. Nobody will make you understand all these nuances. People just talk and it all sounds very logical. But people miss all the very profound logical points. And the so-called, this kind of an apparently, pseudo-logical things. Miss the point. So therefore, here it says that anybody who says, yeah, I kind of understand that there is one thing which kind of pervades everything, but I don't see that I am that. That means the person has a lot more to reflect on. So this is what, that knowledge of Brahman can never be indirect. You have to understand that. The minute you make it indirect, you make it other than you. Because indirect knowledge by definition is something which is away from you.
So then how to exactly put Brahman? I can't say that it's only me. It is also in me, we have to say that, right? Because it's only for me, then again it becomes limited. So if we have to define how Brahman.
See, one thing is, as I just explained, that this existence, awareness and limitlessness, which is available to you in your buddhi as self-evident I, which is what, when the thought comes, I'm just showing you, when the thought comes, it is what, it is present, it comes to know the presence of the thought. When the thought goes, it is also there, available to be known as something which survives the thought. Now this awareness seems to be connected to this individuality. This is a problem. What Upanishads tell you is, it is as though confinement of this awareness. It's not really confined. Like the space seems to be as though confined here. Because there is an external kind of a thing and you take it as this. This is not I. This is just something which seems to give what? A boundary to I. So now, even here, her I is also what? Same awareness, and there seems to be a boundary. That is also the awareness, that seems to be the boundary. that is awareness, that seems to be the boundary. We are fooled by the boundaries. We are fooled by the boundaries, and we have to release it from the confinements of the boundary that we give. That's an illusion, that's a ignorance based. So that means there is nothing particular about this awareness. Awareness pervades everything, just like the space pervades everything. So that means the real I is this and not this. For us, all of us, real I is this, and then we are trying to have some kind of a relationship with that awareness. Hey, you will never get it. You continue your I and then you want to connect to something bigger. Hey, it is you. It is not something bigger and you have to connect to it.
It's a form that's creating illusion.
Exactly. It's a form which creates an illusion. So you continue to keep your I in that form and then you want to connect to something bigger. That means you will never get there because you are not using the pramana to move from form to the substance. So therefore, there are so many logical or errors. We always think we understand, but how much we don't understand. So it's layers and layers and layers and layers of ignorance. The clarity takes a lot of rigorous thinking. And one time we go on a tangent and we build on it and then everything is false. So that means you have to undo everything which is false and come back to the square one. So this is why this is what we say is it can never be. Please don't think that I have kind of a knowledge of Brahman which is all pervading. Now I have only one more step to do, and that is to recognize I am Brahman. That means the framework is wrong. You will never get that. So this is what is said here. Okay? So here he says, now as Surya explained here, it is something. See, now again your question comes from I am. So your I still remains this individual. So that is the shift one doesn't make. One hears million times and one still takes oneself as this individual. So this is why again you are reminded, as Surya said in the morning, our identity is essentially I am the Bhokta. Bhokta means the enjoyer. So here Atma that Upanishads talk about is not the enjoyer. It is what the awareness in which there is the so-called enjoyer, there is an object of enjoyment, and then there is what? Process of enjoyment. All three exist in what? Atma. So that means you have to give up your orientation as being one Bhokta. If you keep that orientation and then you want expansion, it will never happen. You have to go other way around. You have to actually give up your identification with this little entity. Only then you can understand. Retaining this individuality, you will get you will only further strengthen it. So therefore, this is what we say, it is the truth of, because that's what I also showed yesterday. The fact that I take myself as a knower or an enjoyer, Surya says enjoyer. So enjoyer is negated by doer. Doer is negated by what? Experiencer. So that means all these are incidental to Atma. Nothing is sticking to Atma. Secondly, the way you can see it as, for me I am the Bhokta, but for her I am the object of Bhokta. So that means object of enjoyment. So that means these are all relative positions. Nothing is sticking to Atma. People struggle a lot with this so-called akarta and abhokta. The akarta, abhokta is a fact about Atma. It's not that you have to become akarta and you have to become abhokta. See, this is the problem that Vedanta has. That you retain your individuality, then you want to not do anything, and then you say, oh, I am not the doer. That is not knowledge. Atma has never performed any action. Knowledge. This individuality, you are not trying to make it as non-doer. This individual will always remain what? There is a mind, there is a body, and it will constantly engage in action. In spite of engaging in action, you have to understand Atma doesn't perform any action. The locus of action is body and mind, and it is not Atma. That is knowledge. So therefore, this is what the person understands. And only then there is the so-called, the knowledge of Brahman has to be direct. Because Brahman cannot be understood as an object of knowledge. And this is why, see, if you make one error, so many consequential errors you will make. If it is an object, then it is available for perception and inference. In which case you don't need Upanishad at all. The Upanishad's Pramanatvam also you are negating. So, one error and hundreds of concomitant errors. You are making it something which, if it was an object external, then it's available. You don't need Upanishads. So this is how one error and series of errors will take place. So this is why one has to understand knowledge that Upanishad gives about Brahman can only be what? Direct knowledge. And Brahman can never be understood as something which is other than you. That shows non-understanding. You can't say, I understand Brahman as something which is there everywhere, but I don't understand I am Brahman. That is an illogical statement. That means you say you understand, but in your sentence, how much you don't understand, it reveals. So therefore, these are the very subtle points which need to be understood. Okay. Now, here he says, now the whole process of knowing is not something which is very easy. So here some methods are given and there some imageries are used to show what those processes are. Here he says, Swadeham arani krutva pranavam cha uttararinam dhyana nimirtha abhyasat evam pashyat nikudavat. Okay, so here he says that there is some process of what we call churning, and it says making one's body the lower piece of the wood, and what Svadaha arani krutva, and Pranavam is Omkara, which is Ishvara, is the upper piece of the wood, and one should, this is an imagery, okay, through the practice of meditation realize the self which is hidden as it were. Okay, so that means that initially, see, as Khan was saying, that this knowledge is not only about discovery of the self as independent of the body and mind. This knowledge is a discovery about the Atma as being truth of the whole universe. The truth of the whole universe means you can't but inquire into what the cause of how did the universe. It certainly didn't come from you. So you have to inquire into the cause of the universe. You have to inquire into the nature of the universe. You have to inquire into the nature of this individuality. You need to know many things in order to arrive at the nature of Atma. So now, the first step is, the first step in this inquiry is you see yourself as connected to Ishvara. So the wave is struggling. The wave is feeling frightened because when the wave opens one's eyes, wave sees what?
Ocean all around.
In fact, the
Many
wave
waves.
sees
Many
only
waves.
many waves.
Many waves, yeah.
And some are Atlantic waves, some are what? Pacific waves.
Some are very big waves.
Some are very big waves, some are very small waves. You open your eyes and you see waves. And you are lost in the world of waves. And no matter which way you look, it reminds you of your limitations. Even if you feel you're very beautiful or you're very intelligent or you're very privileged, anything that you feel, you'll always find what? Somebody more beautiful, somebody more wealthy, somebody more intelligent. It's always the case. You compare yourself, you think one thinks one is in, you compare yourself to Einstein, you feel, oh my God, I haven't done anything in life. So therefore, it's always like that, that is the truth. So therefore, this is our wave world. And wave world means there is helplessness, there is limitations, there is inadequacy, as Surya was saying. Now, you are very frantically trying to get rid of this limitation. Then somebody comes and tells you, hey, when you see many, actually there is one entity. Every wave is part of the ocean. You say, no, but I only see waves. If your eyes were programmed to see only forms, then you will say, but I don't see one, I see waves, waves, waves. I don't see one entity called ocean. Because your eyes can only see what? They are programmed to see waves, forms. So then somebody makes you inquire, hey, all these waves that are there, they must come from somewhere. They are sustained by something, and unto something they go. Otherwise it's not possible. Then you say, yeah, but locally everybody that I see is not from somewhere the entire, all the waves come. From where all the, unto which all the waves go. Locally I don't see anybody like that. So is it a belief? Are you asking me to believe it? And he said, yeah, there is some entity out there from where we all come. An entity called ocean out there. Then, if the teacher is a Vedanti, they'll say, hey, it's not out there. Every wave is pervaded by the ocean. Tell me one wave which is not pervaded by the ocean. Ocean is an entity which includes all the waves, but it is not sum total of all the waves. Please understand, if you take it as sum total of all the waves, you are making it so limited. Why? Because the sum total of the existing waves is a very small fraction of what? All the waves which are going to come. Of the past that existed, of the future that is going to exist,
and all the water below.
and all the water below, and also that that which decides which wave, which is unmanifest now, is going to come into manifestation, and also what is going to become non-manifest. Ishvara is not sum total of all the forms. It's not. It's much more than that.
And it is not also not bound by time. and space.
Absolutely. It is not exactly. Because what you see is within time and space. Ishvara is not something which is one of the, because everything that you see is within time and space. So sum total of everything that you see is within time and space. Ishvara is that which is here plus time and space, plus when the time and space and objects are in unmanifest form, it still is there. So don't take it as just sum total of things. It's not sum total of all the forms today. It's also not sum total of what the forms of the past, and it is also not what sum total of forms that are going to exist in the future. It's more than that. All that is Ishvara, but Ishvara is more than that. So that means this is Ishvara. What you see is very little, and this is why Ishvara is not before inquiry of Upanishad, oh there must be something bigger, and after the inquiry of Upanishad also, oh there must be something bigger, means what? You're at the same point, you haven't moved.
This is a very beautiful example.
Yeah.
Ocean wave.
Yeah. So that means this wave is much more than all that you are. Exactly as Lutz is saying, it's also water which is not the waves that you see. So therefore, this Ishvara, then you have to understand the enormity of Ishvara, and you have to understand all that is there is Ishvara. You can't be partial about, yeah, I only take this as Ishvara and I forget about that. Hey, forgetting about that means error. What is comfortable to me, what seems right, it's not a matter of being comfortable, it's seeing the realities. So that means one has to refine one's understanding of what is Ishvara. And make it as precise what I understand by Ishvara. Once it includes everything, and everything it means what? Things which are known to me and unknown to me in terms of forms, but it also includes all, the framework includes everything. Then the person says, oh my God, so that means the wave which was feeling very lonely and isolated has a sense of belonging. Belonging to what? Not an imaginary entity, to a reality, a real entity called the ocean. It sees its intimate connection with the ocean. Not based on fantasy, not based on Upanishads are saying, therefore there must be. It's clear. When you see your connection with Ishvara, Ishvara is not just one thing, it's multifaceted. Multifaceted means it has to change everything about your life. It has to change how you make your decisions. It has to change how you respond to situations. It has to change your emotional life. It has to change your opinions about the world. It has to change everything. Can't just be partial. This is what we call bringing Ishvara in your life, getting well. Your psyche has to undergo a transformation, incorporating this fact which you had missed out earlier. A psyche which was built from a fact which missed the most essential presence has too many holes. Too many many wrong understanding, too much suffering, too much load. That psyche has to change and it has to be nourished with the presence of Ishvara. And as Surya said, one has to flow with this amazing presence of Ishvara. Our teacher used to use a beautiful word, and he used to say, relax in the lap of Ishvara. That is the only time. He used to say very beautiful thing. I think Carl mentioned yesterday. Is it Carl who mentioned?
Yeah.
Okay. So he used to say something very nice, which I'm going to say, that you know how he used to explain, because he knew psychology. So he said that, you know, all of us are born, and when we are born, we are totally dependent. We can't do anything on our own. So that means you can't brush your teeth, you can't get your own food, you can't clean yourself. For everything we need to what? Depend upon something else. And who are the people that we depend upon? Yes, our parents. So our parents, we come with very intimate connection with, you know, our parents. Now, if we are so dependent, there is a natural mechanism in this universe that if I am so dependent upon you, I have to trust you to take care of me. There is an inbuilt trust. If my next meal, if I am insecure about, then I will not survive as a child. There is a trust that my parents, implicit trust, my parents will give me what? Food. There is an implicit trust that my parents will give me, wash me. There is an implicit trust that my parents will take care of me, provide me with everything that I need. My clothes, my everything. So that means a human child is programmed to have total trust. Total trust in parents. Because that is a survival mechanism. It's a survival because you are depending upon them. You have to trust them. If you keep doubting them, you will not, the child's mind cannot survive. If you are afraid about where my next meal is going to come from, for a child it's a trauma. So therefore, you are programmed to trust. What happens along the way is your trust gets violated. Your trust gets violated because your parents don't always behave in a coherent fashion. Sometimes the child sees my father is really loving. Sometimes he's so angry. Sometimes he's so rude. Sometimes he's all erratic behaviors. Same thing with reference to mother. Sometimes she's so loving, and sometimes she is just in her own world. She is not looking after me. So that means there is violation of trust. Violation of trust is something which is so deep. For a child's mind, it is a trauma. Where you had put total trust, you see what? Irrationality. You see imperfection. Then the child, what is in the psyche of the child is what? I can't trust. Then as you grow, your deepest message about everything is what? I should not trust. I can't trust. Whether it is your friend, or it is your spouse, or it is your kids, or whatever, the whole basis of your interaction with is not trust. Now imagine what is going to be our interaction if I don't trust you and you don't trust me?
Controlling.
Huh?
Controlling.
Yeah? The more you don't trust, the more you want to control the other person. You want to keep the person under your fold. Because you don't trust, if you leave the person just the way it is, you don't know what the person will do. So non-trust, controlling, this becomes the basis of our interaction. It manifests. You don't trust the organization, you don't trust the people who you work with, you don't trust, and nobody trusts anybody. Then we all live highly insecure life. Has to be. Now, keeping our vision exactly the same, you will continue to be like that. Non-trusting, and because of non-trusting, insecurity, and insecurity means you want to control. How will you get well? You find everybody